fix when I do these using this platform, StreamYard, is updating the. I always have to update the thumbnail after. I got to figure out how to do that before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to do it because this laptop I'm using is a Chromebook, and I can't download Skype on it. And I didn't know that. So the only other laptop that I could use was this old ass laptop that's like mad slow, and I think it's still downloading on it right now. That's why I didn't use Skype.
Damn, man. Yeah, a lot of people have been having problems with Skype, especially recently. Like that's why I've been using this platform, StreamYard, recently.
I never heard it before. How many interviews you did with it?
This week, I've done 3 already with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I've been doing more interviews this week than usual, though.
Yeah, I seen your channel. You've had a lot of panels and interviews over the last couple of weeks that I watched.
Yeah, I'm trying to like build a closer community, so I want to like bring as many people on here as possible.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. All right, so the thumbnail should be updated now. Let me go back and see who's here. All right, we got 6 people here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Oh, I can post on my my YouTube and my Twitter.
Oh yeah, I gotta share it too. What's up, Mona? I'm about to share this right now. Yeah, I'm about to share it, and then we'll get started. All right, and you want me to call you Dontel or
yeah, you can call me Dontel.
All right, cool. All right, so welcome, Tony. What's up, Ali? All right, we got some people trickling in now. All right, I guess we can get started now. You ready?
Yeah, just post it on my YouTube.
Bet. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Frank Analysis. I'm your host, Franco. I am joined today by Dontel, host of his YouTube show, Unapologetic. How's it going, bro?
It's going good. Glad to be here. Been watching your channel grow for a while, so I'm glad to finally be on.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally have you on, man. I saw you for the first time. I saw you 2 years ago when you did an interview with Nico House. And then I saw that you were on David Pakman's show a couple times as a call-in caller. And then you like to his show and you would like try to call him out on some of his like sketchy like positions, like his corporatist positions. So it's good that you did that. How many times did you go on his show?
I've been on David's show over a dozen times, I'd say. So I'm not sure exactly how many times, but I used to call in pretty regular.
So what do you remember, like some of the reasons for why you would call in, and like what would you call him out on?
So I used to watch David Pakman for years. I watched him years ago. And so after like around 2016, maybe it was even before then, he just like started becoming more like repeating, more like mainstream and like repeating mainstream talking points and stuff like that. And so I think it was after like around 2018 or 2019, I was like, all right, I had enough. I seen the videos and I'm like, so nobody's gonna like check him on it because nobody else in new media was saying anything about it. So I was like, all right, let me call into the show and like have a discussion about it. So I've called in to the show. The first time was about some smear videos that he was doing about Tulsi Gabbard when she announced her campaign. I've called in about the Russiagate and how the media was obsessed with it and over focused on that compared to like some of the other scandals, real scandals that Donald Trump did that were way worse. So we had a discussion about that. We had a discussion about foreign policy, Elizabeth Warren's foreign policy, actually. Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden's foreign policy. And of course, he was kind of defending it. A bunch of different things we talked about.
And he wasn't really answering your question on the Elizabeth Warren one. I was just watching that one before you called in.
Oh, really? Yeah, that was one of the most substantive one. And yeah, it was weird for me that he was taking the position that like he was kind of defending the status quo of imperialism, and he wasn't really pushing. I can't remember the call to the T because it was over a year ago, but it was very telling that he was defending neoliberalism and like neocon imperialism and things like that.
Yeah, even now, like he doesn't defend Medicare for all ever. He says that he'll be okay with us like waiting a couple years until we have it. So it's like he's not really in it for the fight; he's in it for the clout. And
sorry,
no, go ahead.
I'm saying that was something me and Nico talked about earlier today, which is like there's this weird disconnect in new media and on the left of people who they like have this idea like, oh, we didn't get it this time, so we're gonna have to wait till the next election cycle. We're gonna have to wait till 2024. We're gonna wait 2028. We're gonna have to wait 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And then when the Justice Democrats have a majority in Congress and they have a majority in the Senate and they have elected progressive president, then we'll fight for Medicare for all. Like that is so out of touch with reality and what's actually happening right now, because it's an emergency right now. Like we need single payer right now, and people are dying because they can't afford basic healthcare in this country. So the idea that, oh, we can just wait 10 years from now, like people who can't afford their insulin next week can't afford to wait 10 years from now. They can't afford to wait till next week because they can't afford to pay for it. So it's like people's lives are on the line. And I feel like people in new media, especially more, I would say, out of touch, how does Richard Medhurst call them? The boutique left. Like they are comfortable. So even though they can pay lip service to the policies and say, oh yeah, it sounds nice on paper, their lives aren't materially impacted of it, whether or not we get the policy, but at the end of the day, they have healthcare. They may pay more for it without single payer, but they still have healthcare. So it's not like a life or death situation for them. And I think that there's a new era in new media of people who do get the urgency of these policies and why we need to have them now. And like channels like yours and the Convo Couch and Nico and Jimmy Dore, like I feel like they bring their urgency to the issues, and it's clear that we can't just wait around for electoral politics to solve these problems. Like we actually, direct action is the only option we have left.
Yeah, so Ali Alexander says, didn't you hear that Joe Biden said help is on the way? It's been on the way for like decades already. Like it needs to be here now. You were just saying, like people are dying. It's a pandemic. Like the moment is tailor made to finally have it. And then people like Bernie Sanders, who ran on this, who we thought was like going to save us in 2016, isn't even fighting for it. One of the points that you bring up on your show that I think is a really important point is there's not enough of these people in independent media that are calling each other out. Like how they call out the corporate media and the mainstream media for bringing up like all these bullshit points. They need to be holding each other accountable. And there wasn't enough of that like 2 years ago where it was just you or Nico. Jimmy Dore used to be afraid to call out TYT. It's only recent in which he started calling them out and holding them accountable. So it must have felt really lonely, I guess, for you back then, like 2 years ago when you were calling out other independent media shows. Yeah,
it was, and that's such a weird like silent rule that everybody said that like, okay, we're all friends here, we're all buddies. So even though one of the main things that they do is media critique because they see the importance of trying to correct the record. And when people are saying things that are just incredibly false and misleading, and the impact that that can have on national discourse or on policy and politics, they see the importance of that when the corporate media is misleading people. But for some reason, they feel like, oh, when it's other people, when it's my friends in new media doing it, I don't need to do a whole segment laying out how all the 8 different ways they're wrong and how they're misleading the audience or anything like that. And I feel like that's just it wasn't from when I first noticed it, I knew it was a recipe for disaster. And like over the last few weeks, definitely it's been more clear than ever. But this is something that's been building for the last couple of months and the last couple of years, because they're just these huge defining issues for the left where we really should be on the same page, and they're just all these wildly different and contradictory points of view out there in new media. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that people disagree, but I think that we should acknowledge the disagreement, and I think that we should have a discussion about it, because it's just impossible for both people to be on opposing sides and both of them to be right. So if you're going to just say, oh, this is my point of view and that's their point of view, and I'm not going to correct it for the audience, okay, then there's just going to be a lot of people who hear the like, say for instance, like Cenk Uygur or Anna Kasparian or Sam Cedar, they hear their Emma Vigeland, their shitty arguments, and they're like, oh, that sounds good, but of course we shouldn't force a vote for Medicare for all because something is bad for the movement. And when you don't correct like bad ideas like that, it just floats, and then people pick it up and they take it on for themselves. So it's important to have the discussions, and somebody's right, so everybody make their case and let the audience decide who they think have made the best argument, rather than just ignore it and like, oh, we agree on the big picture, so let's not get into any of these details, no matter how important they are, as we've learned in the last couple of weeks and last couple of months.
Yeah, and these are people that have big platforms. Like they're now like in the hundreds of thousands. I don't know how much they were like 2 years ago. I think they were still like over 100,000. A lot of them, like Kyle Kalinske, Sam Cedar, and like they wouldn't criticize each other. David Pakman, like they wouldn't criticize each other and hold each other accountable. And then, like you were saying, like their audience picks it up and then keeps like they have trust in these people because they're like, oh, they're not mainstream media, so they're more genuine. So it's really dangerous, because then you have all these people that are led down the wrong path because they're taking misinformation from, you know, the people that they trust on YouTube, that they think are more genuine than the mainstream media, which I would say like they are for the most part, but I mean, it doesn't mean that they can't genuinely be misled.
Yeah, like, and Russiagate, I mean, there's so many different issues where it like the divide between what people were believing on the left, it should not have been as wide as it was. Like Russiagate, it was bullshit from the beginning, and the people who really latched onto it were people who had Trump derangement syndrome, and it was just like, anything that's Trump bad, I'm just going to talk about it nonstop, 24/7. And like, it was so bad that like, I remember TYT, if they say they did like 10 segments for the day, they did do a show 5 days a week, I swear to God, like 8 segments would have been about Trump and Russiagate, and the other 2 segments were probably about Trump and something else. So it was like so overwhelming, and it was so dominant, and this was like the main focus of discussion in the country. And that was just like, there was, the way I saw it, it was the biggest propaganda campaign since the Iraq war in this country. Like, it was the scale of it, the amount of attention that it got from the media compared to all the other stories. And over the last 4 years, it's been nothing but huge stories every single day or every other day. So at the height of Russiagate, it was like, for about 3 years, that was all they were talking about. So if you claim to be like TYT, the home of progressives or whatever the fuck they call themselves. Like, if you claim to be the home of progressives, but yet all the content, damn near all the content you're doing is just repeating talking points from the CIA and the national security apparatus in mainstream media. All right, so we're gonna have a conversation about that. And you're doing it uncritically, and you're doing it in a way that is provoking more antagonistic actions toward a nuclear power. So it's like there were so many downsides to it that, of course, we should have been having a robust conversation about it in new media. And there should have been dialogue between some of the more prominent hosts in new media about it, because for the reasons that I listed before, but also that was laying the groundwork for this crackdown on fake news and censorship that we're seeing right now. So all of this has been building, and if we had the conversation about it, if there was open dialogue about it, if like prominent people like Kyle Klinsky, he would do multiple segments about how fucking batshit crazy Rachel Maddow and Joe Scarborough and everybody else in mainstream media looked, covering Russiagate and hyperventilating over stories that were proven false time and time again. He would do endless stories about that. But that discussion wasn't had in new media. And I think it was important to have it in new media because it created that whole Russiagate scenario. It just created a bunch of different camps. And we're so deep in the rabbit hole that we can't even talk about how bad censorship was, how bad corporate censorship is, and trying to and how we've got to this place where it's so widely accepted because of this whole crackdown on fake news. We can't even have a discussion about that with some people on the left because they think that Russiagate wasn't fake news. They think that the real problem with the 2016 election was that the Russia hacked the DNC and they stole Hillary Clinton's email and they were doing fake news. They were spreading fake news and misinformation online. Like, they think that is a serious issue, and they think that's something that the government has to, and the corporate social media platforms have to do something to combat, because they've been so indoctrinated and so like caught up in the Russiagate hysteria. So this whole thing has like evolved way farther than it should have, because if they had this debate, if everybody said, Cenk, you sound like a fucking idiot, like from the beginning, instead of like giving him the benefit of the doubt, I'm like, oh, maybe he actually, like, no, Cenk, you sound like an idiot, and you're repeating CIA talking points, and you're repeating stories that are proven false. Like, maybe a lot of people in this audience would have seen that and like, oh wow, maybe that person has a point, and Cenk actually can't verify all the shit he's saying, and it's just pure conjecture, and it's just made up, and maybe I shouldn't believe this Russiagate thing. So that's my tangent on this whole let's live and let live and not criticize anybody in new media. Like, part of the job is media critique, and that includes like the media space that we're in, left new media.
Yeah, and that was really, really well said. And I mean, it's been years, and people now, like, it's been ingrained in a lot of people's heads. And I remember Kyle would say that he doesn't want to debate like Ben Shapiro or like Steven Crowder, because he says he's giving legitimacy to their crazy arguments. But then he would go on to debate Cenk Uygur as if like his Russiagate talking points are like legitimate and that it's like something worth debating about. And then he would be quiet and not criticize him on his show like he criticizes Rachel Maddow. That was really dangerous. I think that's something that we need to learn from going forward, to not like stay quiet and, you know, hold each other accountable when we're really wrong about certain issues. So Embo Med Fate, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, sup Frank and Unapologetic. Love you guys' work. How hardcore do you think mainstream media and neo-progressives will go to ignore Biden's war crimes if he starts a war? Well, I'm not going to stay quiet about it. But as far as neo-progressives and mainstream media, they're going to be silent on it. But I don't know if you saw this tweet by Emma Vigilant, Dontel, where she was like, "Oh, we're gonna use all that energy that we had against Trump, and we're gonna turn it against Biden." And then I retweeted. I was like, "Make sure you guys keep this as a receipt, because I don't think that they're gonna go after him. I don't think that she's gonna hold on to that, and instead she's gonna use that energy to keep going after like Tulsi and Jimmy." What do you think?
So the boutique left. I'm not sure how they would handle Biden starting a new war. Well, actually, let me talk about the corporate media, because undoubtedly they're going to go along with it, because they go along with every war and every illegal military intervention that the U.S. tries to do around the world. So of course they're gonna anything Joe Biden says, they're gonna be on board with it. Like his Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, he was talking about how they're going to continue doing the coup in Venezuela. Like, nobody in the media batting an eyelash at it. It is like they're saying the expressed objective, the goal of the Biden administration is to do illegal regime change in Venezuela so that Western oil companies can go in there and steal their natural resources. That's the express position of the Biden administration. That is a war crime. That should be a scandal. And from the second that Tony Blinken said that in the hearings, that should have been all everybody was talking about. But it didn't get a second look. It didn't get a second glance because they're all pro-war and they all have people who work there who get a bunch of money from the military-industrial complex. CNN, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all these other defense contractors, they spend millions of dollars on ads on their network, and it's not just to I don't know what they would be advertising. Part of what they're doing when they're buying ads on their network is they're buying their influence and they're making them more receptive to the whatever the propaganda of the defense industry is. Because if you're getting millions of dollars in ads from them, of course you're just going to do whatever propaganda they want you to do to start a new war. You got $30 million in ads from them last year. Why wouldn't you do whatever they want? So that part of it is true. The manufacturing consent part of corporate media, they're going to go along with whatever Biden wants. And honestly, that's one of the there's so many bad parts about this transition from Trump to Biden, but that is going to be one of the worst, because even though the way they hated Trump was irrational and they chose all the dumbest reasons to criticize Trump and go after him, at least there was this air of hostility between the press and president that I haven't seen ever before, because usually they're just lapdogs of power. So what's going to happen with this Biden administration is they're going to be reading whatever Biden tells them, whatever the State Department tells them, whatever the CIA tells them, whatever the Pentagon tells them. They're just going to be reading it as fact and not going to be critical, and they'll push whatever war, whatever military intervention and military escalation Joe Biden wants to do, whether it's in Syria, Yemen, or Venezuela, Iran, wherever, Afghanistan. They're just going to be all on board, and they won't even hesitate for it. Now, about the boutique left, like people like TYT. So, Jank, I remember when the coup in Venezuela started, and they tried to, and like Trump declared Juan Guaido as the president of Venezuela. So, like TYT, they were like, oh, Maduro's bad and he's a dictator. He rigged the election and all this stuff. And like, they were saying all the things that the talking points to smear Maduro, the things that they don't even have any fact to back up. And that was just like really State Department and CIA talking points to manufacture consent for whatever intervention we were trying to do in Venezuela. They were just repeating that uncritically at TYT. And David Pakman, I remember this is one thing I really wish I did call in to talk to him about, was he was just pretending like the U.S. wasn't doing a coup in Venezuela. And he did the same thing in Bolivia too. And this was back when Trump was president. So, I mean, now that it's Biden, and we already know how definitely David Pakman is hesitant to do a video criticizing Joe Biden. It's I have no hope that when Joe Biden tries to escalate somewhere and does some type of military intervention and start some war somewhere, he won't be one of the loudest voices pushing back. I'll just say that much.
Yeah, and I hope it becomes more apparent going forward to some of their audience members how hackish they are, like David Pakman, TYT, because they don't have any excuses now. Like they can't use Trump as an excuse. They can't use, oh, we got to do this like so that Bernie can become president later on down the line. And seeing as how AOC is becoming more apologetic for Biden and all these corporate Democrats, more people are waking up to that, and they can't use that as an excuse anymore. So the corporate Democrats, they defend like the corporations and they make excuses for them. And then the squad makes excuses for the corporate Democrats. And then these neo-progressives make excuses for the squad. So like they're indirectly making excuses for corporations, these neo-progressives or the boutique left. So that like going forward, at least I'm seeing more people waking up to their BS. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. And I think from when I started criticizing like the boutique left and new media, and when I started criticizing AOC and the Justice Democrats and calling them sellouts and tools of the establishment, from back then, I was seeing what they were doing, and it was clear the direction that they were going in. And I knew that it was going to come to a head at some point. I didn't know exactly when it would be or what the exactly the catalyst or the scenario to like set it off. But like I knew they couldn't keep up the charade forever. You can't be saying, "Oh, Nancy Pelosi's mama bear," and at the same time pretending you're leading this left revolution to overthrow the corporatists in the Democratic Party. Like those things are incongruent. Like those things don't match. They don't go together. So they could only like sit on the fence so long, and eventually they were going to show their ass. And then since this crisis started, since COVID started and the economic depression started, it was time for them to put their money where their mouth is. They had all this tough talk, and they were this big rhetoric and talking about like they were big revolutionaries. All right, now so let's see where it's at, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the shock doctrine by Naomi Klein.
Yep.
But that's the situation we're in. Most leftists, definitely prominent leftists, they're familiar with the shock doctrine. So once we knew the scale of the crisis and how bad it was going to get, all right, now, so we know what's coming. You have to do something to stop it. You have to do something to counter. You have to actually push your agenda. The corporations and the neoliberals, they're going to push their corporatist agenda. Now it's your time to push the leftist agenda. Okay. So this was, like you said, like you and Jimmy Dore and a lot of people saying, this was the great unmasking, because they couldn't keep up the pretense of this, what they do really at Congress, of like just really going along with whatever the status quo is, and then this whole revolutionary rhetoric. Like they couldn't keep it up. And then the force to vote, it's like they were literally arguing against a floor vote for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. So it's like, all right, now, I mean, there's still people trying to like give them the benefit of the doubt, breaking their fucking back, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and come up with all these rationalizations for why it was actually a good thing to not oust Nancy Pelosi when they had the opportunity to force Nancy Pelosi out and then get a vote on Medicare for all, UBI, or any number of policies that they claim to support. Now, I mean, people are still doing it, but it's like you're saying, to a lot of other people, to most people, it's clear on its face, it's transparent that, okay, this isn't really adding up, and that shit doesn't make sense. Because what we've been hearing, like, and that's just one of the such a great things about the force to vote movement, because before this, all of the talk was, there was always an excuse. There was always a reason. There was always some mental gymnastics that the most prominent supporters of AOC and the Justice Democrats would give as to why they're doing nothing, why they have absolutely no results, even though they've been in Congress for over 2 years now. And go down the list. When it was shilling for Joe Biden, oh, they had to do it because Trump bad, orange man bad, and he's Hitler, he's a devil, and he's every bad thing ever on the planet. So of course they have to shill for the chief architect of neoliberalism and corporatism, and the person who is fundamentally against every single policy that they claim to believe in. So of course they had to do it. That was the excuse back then. And when it was with the CARES Act, they didn't have the votes to stop the CARES Act anyway, and people needed a $1,200 check. So can you really blame them for voting for the worst corporate heist, the worst corporate bailout in history, the worst display of corporatism and neoliberalism I can ever think of that ever passed through the House and Senate? How can you be mad at them for doing that? And then so with this force of vote moment, there's no excuses. There's no, we didn't have the numbers to stop it. The Justice Democrats had the numbers to block Nancy Pelosi or whoever the fuck else the Democrats wanted to put up to be Speaker of the House because they couldn't get there, because the majority was so slim. They couldn't get there without the votes of the Justice Democrats. So it wasn't a matter of, they just didn't have the numbers to do it. It was impossible. They couldn't overcome the odds. They on purpose chose not to do it. So there is no room for misinterpretation. There's no miscommunication here. They had an opportunity to do what they ran on, to do what they've been going out and raising a bunch of money from people and small dollar donations from. They had an opportunity to back up all their talk and force a vote on Medicare for all, but they didn't. So it's now become undeniable, and it's not up for debate. They're full of shit, and they're not actually going to do what they ran on. So either it's like, so this whole idea of, we just need to elect more AOCs and we need to elect more Ilhan Omars, like it is become debunked, and there really isn't any argument for it anymore. So honestly, it's for the people who are paying attention, it's either direct action or direct action. Like that's the only option: protest and strikes and organized movements in the street. That is the only way to force a vote on Medicare for all, or vote on UBI, or any number of policies that people desperately need in the worst economic crisis in history and during a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Because clearly the people who claim to be supporting those policies, who love to shoot off tweets about how great Medicare for all is and how great UBI is, clearly they aren't going to do anything for it. And so why are we even wasting our time trying to cajole them and talk nice to them and like just treat them like any regular politician? Protest outside their office just like you would protest outside of Nancy Pelosi's office, because they're just as an obstacle, just as much an obstacle to Medicare for all as anybody else at this point. Because it wasn't corporate Democrats who blocked the Medicare for all vote just now in 2021. That was entirely leftist. It was up to leftists. It was up to elected progressives to decide whether or not we get a floor vote on Medicare for all in this country in the middle of a pandemic, and they chose not to do it. So I'm having such a hard time I would give people the benefit of the doubt, and I would cut them some slack, and maybe they're not seeing what I'm seeing. They're not paying as close attention. But at this point, there's too many examples. There's too many times when they had an opportunity to show what they're going to do and to show who they are. And they keep showing that they're going to side with the establishment. So why would I think of you anything other than an establishment politician?
They just look like QAnoners. Where like, oh no, Trump has a plan. He's playing 4D chess. Oh, the squad is playing 4D chess. Like that's how they look like. This is making excuses and holding on to hope, and then listening to these commentators to give like 101 excuses for them for why they can't fight for progressive issues that they ran on. Like there's no more excuses. There's 15 Democrats now who ran on Medicare for all. They have the majority of the House and the Senate. They have a Democrat in the White House. There's no more excuses. And I can't wait for more people to see through that. And you also had a great video calling out Kyle Kulinski for making up excuses, so many excuses for why the Justice Dems or the squad didn't withhold their vote from Nancy Pelosi. Bro, come on. The Justice Dem strategy failed. You got to own it, man. Just grow from it. Like, why are you holding on to hope? And I think the reason why he holds on to hope is because he has such a big platform. He doesn't interact with his audience much, and he's out of touch. Like, Kyle Kalinske is out of touch.
I think that's a fair point to make. And it doesn't, like, and this is the thing, like, when I do my criticism, it's not because I personally hate them or have like some personal feelings for them. I wish I didn't have to say these things about Kyle Kalinske, because he's one of the biggest influences in new media that like gave me the drive to want to do my show. So I get no pleasure from having to come out and rip Kyle Kalinske. But like you said, he is just, as the years go by, he's just become more out of touch, and his takes just become increasingly more bad. And the whole thing with him defending so it's, for me, it's like, his go-to, they're just bad allies. They're allies who have bad strategy. So for me, that's become like a non-falsifiable claim to him. Like, you can't prove to him that's not the case. You can't tell, no matter what they do, no matter how indefensible their fuck up is, it's like, it's just water off a duck's back for him. And he's like, oh man, they didn't do what I want this time. Maybe next time. Oh, they didn't do it this time again. Maybe next time. Like,
nothing's at stake for him.
Yeah, he is doing very well with his show. He making more than enough money. He's comfortable. He has healthcare, and he doesn't have like material concerns. And that's not to say that he doesn't want left policies, but my opinion, if Kyle didn't have healthcare, if he was worried if whether or not he'd be able to pay rent next month, if he was worried about if he could pay his utilities, he wouldn't be giving politicians the benefit of the doubt when they go around and after 10 months of doing not a goddamn thing in the middle of a emergency, they go in and vote yes on a $600 check. A one-time means that's a $600 check. If Kyle Kalinske was waiting for that money, if he was waiting for a UBI to determine his material condition, he would see that as a slap in the face and a fucking insult, on top of all the other things that they've done to shaft the people who keep giving them money and who keep giving them support and who keep volunteering for them. So it's like, you're more willing to excuse the inaction and to justify their bullshit and their status quo defending if you don't really have anything on the line. If you are going to be fine whether they do what they say, whether they don't do what they say. Mm-hmm. And like, for Kyle, his bias is like so overwhelming, and he's incapable of doing an objective, rational analysis of the Justice Democrats at this point, because his default is they're good, they have good intentions. So I can never, like, I don't want to say cancel, because I'm not into cancel culture.
He feels like he can't go all out on them, right?
Yeah, and then it's like a very weird thing, and I had a tweet about it a couple of days ago. Like, this need to defend them as if like we owe them something. It makes no sense. Like, what are they popular for? Like, I get Kyle's bias here because he was the founder of Justice Democrats. But at the end of the day, yeah, you founded the organization. Yeah, you helped recruit a lot of these Justice Democrats, and you help like with the strategy for their campaign, and you help boost their campaigns and stuff like that. I understand that. But at the same time, are you doing that? Like, is this whole thing just so we can get politicians that we like and that we're personally friends with into power? Or are we doing it as a power move so that when in times like this, in moments like this, when it comes down to just a few people in Congress to take a stand and do something, we have somebody in there who's representing the left? I thought that was the point of the Justice Democrats. And if they aren't living up to that after 2 years, and it's not like, oh, they give us one thing and they do another thing that's bad, or they give us another thing and then they do another, like, they have no results and nothing but siding with the establishment. And after 2 years, you have to take a step back and like, all right, so how much time are we going to give them before we just say, all right, enough with this shit, and they're clearly not doing what we sent them to do. So you can't just keep giving them excuses. Like, okay, if, like I said, if this was a thing to like a power move so that we have people in positions of power when the time comes, then you have to be able to draw a line and say, all right, when you're not doing it, we can replace you with somebody else. Because AOC isn't popular because she's AOC. She's not on TV every day, and she doesn't have the support of millions of leftists in this country. She doesn't have 10 million Twitter followers because she's AOC and she's such a bubbly, likable personality. The only reason she got to the position where she is, the only reason why she beat Joe Crowley in the primary is because she was running on leftist policies. And if you're not going to do anything for those leftist policies, then you can go and we can find somebody else who can articulate leftist policies, and they can become the new superstar they love. They can become the new AOC, and they could get millions of Twitter followers, because it's not, none of these Justice Democrats are like, their personalities aren't so unique that we have to, by any cost, by any and all costs, we have to do whatever we can to keep them on their side. They can go kick rocks, because at the end of the day, just like I thought that we all agree with Bernie Sanders, it's not me, it's us. Yeah. So it's not about the politicians. You are just, you're just a figurehead. You're just there in front of the movement. But really, the only reason you have any power, the only reason why you're in a position, the only reason why you're elected is because of the movement. So like this whole weird thing, like, there is no offense that they can do that is worth just moving on and finding someone else. And even if, and here's the thing, and this is why, another reason why I'm so frustrated with Kyle, is it's not that it's not just that he's going to, he doesn't want to like abandon the takeover of the Democratic Party and go to like help support a third party like Movement for a People Party. It's not just that, but okay, say you do want to stick with this hostile takeover of the Democratic Party, and he really does believe that this is the best way to affect change in our political system. Okay, so you still have to acknowledge the fact that we sent these people there, and now they're completely unresponsive. Now they feel absolutely no need to consult with the left. When was the last time they did a round of interviews on left new media? They feel no need to have to explain themselves or strategize with the left movement that got them there. So even if you still believe that the hostile takeover is the right strategy, you still have to address that problem. Because if you don't, then now you're just supporting people who are defending the status quo. And now that's basically, you might as well just support any regular ass Democrat then, if that's what you're going to do. So there's other ways you can go about it, even if you still believe that we have to take over the Democratic Party. Because, like I said, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. There's steps in between. Say Kyle Klinsky and other people in your media were like, all right, since these people want to clearly ignore us and ignore this whole huge, incredibly popular Force of Vote movement, and we were calling on them to do what they wanted, what they ran on, and they didn't even have the decency to come to a town hall and explain why they won't do it. All right, so that on top of shilling for Joe Biden and on top of the CARES Act and doing and letting Nancy Pelosi go 10 months without doing a goddamn thing in the middle of emergency, even though the Democrats control the House. All right, so the Justice Democrats let all that shit slide. So how about this? We stop giving them money. And if they did some type of organized campaign to be like, all right, everybody, stop giving them money until they start listening to us, I bet you they'd start listening to you. They would feel some pressure. So it's not even, like I said, I understand his bias, but he won't even try to pressure them to do anything. Like the furthest he will go is to come out and do a segment, one of the many segments that he's done since they've been elected, and give them all this nice advice that sounds great and it would actually be helpful if they did it. And he does it. He does the video. He says, and he talks to them all nice and like, hey guys, I know you really mean well, but can you please listen to me this time? And then when they don't listen to him, oh well, maybe next time. Like there is no,
and he makes all these excuses for them.
Yeah, there's no accountability. There's no okay. So if you don't do this, we're gonna stop donating to you. If you don't do this, then we're gonna stop volunteering for you. If you don't do this, we're gonna find somebody to run against you. Like there is no there is no like there's nothing to hold them accountable with. It's just, oh, we like you so much, please do what we want because we like you. Like, that makes no sense.
Look at these past couple of days with Joe Biden, like as he was coming in, or like immediately after, like what he backpedaled on. So he resigned his decision on the Keystone Pipeline. He is recognizing Guaido as the leader of Venezuela, and he is increasing the number of troops to Iraq. Where is the squad? Like, why aren't they pressuring him? Why aren't they calling him out? And then there's also this. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm sure you saw this. All right, can you see that?
No. Okay, hold on, I see now.
Yeah. So this is on Forbes. Biden's to Georgia, vote blue, and $2,000 checks will go out the door immediately. And like, where are the $2,000 checks? Instead, they're making up this bullshit like, oh, 14,000. I mean, 1,400. It's like plus the 600. No, like you said, 2,000. Give us 2,000, and then instead we get this. So here is Ilhan Omar. She says tomorrow Kamala will become the first woman sworn in as vice president of the United States. Little girls across the country will finally be able to see themselves fully reflected in their government. You can read my essay here. Like, no, absolutely no pressure. She's trying to like whitewash the whole situation here, and like she's giving praise to them when they haven't even delivered, and they didn't even ran on any compromises that will help the millions of American people suffering. And then Jamal Bowman is like, congratulations to President Joe Biden and our historic Vice President Kamala Harris. We have an opportunity to build a government that supports, loves, and reflects its people. Very excited to work with you both to make that happen. Let's go. And then just to go back to what Ilhan Omar said here and what Jamal Bowman said here about the historic vice president, like what kind of message does it send to like little girls about Kamala Harris, about how she got to where she got? Like, you have to do the bidding of these corporations, like these corporations that are oppressing people. Like, you have to participate in this mass oppression on the people in order to get to where you get. And then Rashida Tlaib, she says less than 24 hours, and then she puts like, she's like celebrating Kamala Harris. She should know better. Like, she's a Palestinian woman. She knows that Biden and his administration are going to continue to increase. He's going to continue oppressing the Palestinian people because of how friendly they are with Israel. And then he says, no matter your political views today, there is a sense of peace when you see the incoming president show some empathy. And then I got to point out what Justin Jackson said here. He said, I respect you, but this is delusional. Biden just released his COVID relief healthcare plan, and it's a massive giveaway to insurance companies with no Medicare expansion. It's gross. Please don't play us for a fool. That's not empathy. And then lastly, AOC says, a historic day. Congratulations to new President Joe Biden and our Vice President Kamala Harris. Now we must begin creating justice, healing our planet, and improving the material conditions for all people. The work is on all of us to organize and build a better future. It's complete platitudes, ignoring all the main issues that are affecting us. They're not proposing any policies. So what are your thoughts on this, man? Like, are you like how do you feel about this, the fraud squad praising these corporatists and imperialists instead of challenging them like they said that they were going to?
So like that's like another thing where it's like there is no, like there's such a range. Say they actually believe the shit that they were saying. Say they actually were these you know, they were going in there to do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party, and they're leading the charge for the left side of the Civil War, the Democratic Party. There's such a range of ways you can act, and such a range of ways you can behave towards these different establishment politicians. And like where they are is indistinguishable from the way that any establishment Democrat would. So they can be way over here and say, oh, fuck Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. They're both war criminals and they're both neocons and neoliberals, and their agenda is radically opposed to what the majority of the country wants, and they're just serving their corporate donors. That's where they should be. That's the only type of rhetoric and like type of verbal, like that's the only type of dialogue that makes sense if you really believe that the neoliberal ideology and the neoliberal agenda is as dangerous as they've been saying it is, and it's like leading to the destruction of the working class and people in this country. If you really believe that, that's where you would really that's the way you would view them. You wouldn't view them like this whole, oh, let's celebrate because she's a woman, let's celebrate because she's Jamaican and she's Indian, like all that shit, it takes a back seat because at the end of the day, what are you there to do? What is your business there? It isn't to like celebrate identity politics and yay women breaking the glass ceiling. Like you have a whole list of things that if you, like I said, if you actually mean what you say, that should be important, that you should be working around the clock nonstop for. So you can't like, and in order to do that, you have to be hostile to Kamala Harris. You have to be hostile to Joe Biden, and you can't like this whole, oh, we're going to be like this whole civility and we're going to be kind to them. Like that is just bullshit because it's similar to Joe Biden. I mean, to Bernie with Joe Biden, like when he was going around talking about my good friend Joe Biden, like all your personal feelings and relationships and interactions, that doesn't mean anything. Like you can have your feelings, but that's not like, you're a public figure and you're supposed to be, you are the most prominent people representing the working class who's being destroyed in class warfare, and the people who are leading the class warfare are people like Joe Biden. So this like, it never made sense to me how they keep trying to play both sides of the fence. Like you got to pick a side, and it's not a bad thing to pick a side because it's not like there's mixed opinion among the public about the policies. Overwhelming majority support UBI. Overwhelming support single payer, Medicare for all. So just stick with the policies and breathe fire and go scorch earth on anybody who's an obstacle to those policies. And whatever arguments or complaints anybody could have about, oh my God, look how uncivil they're being and being mean to Democratic politicians, like you could just say, I'm fighting for Medicare for all and they're opposed to Medicare for all, so I don't care about your civility there. I don't care that she's the first woman president. That's just a fact. But at the end of the day, they've sided with the establishment. So this is what you'd expect from people who sided with the establishment. They're going to cheerlead them. They're going to whitewash them. They're going to minimize all of their giant, glaring, indefensible flaws, like voting for the Iraq War and Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor. They're going to like downplay all of that shit, and they're just going to make them seem like lovable, nice characters because that's what the Democrats do. That's what establishment Democrats do for each other. They make each other more likable, and they make like this whole partisanship thing, like, oh, Republicans bad, we're good, and that's what the Justice Democrats are. They're nothing but partisan hacks and towing the line of the Democratic Party. So that means shilling for Joe Biden, and that's the thing. Like, oh, they were telling people, oh no, we're just doing it because we have to get Joe Biden elected, and Joe Biden's elected. And they didn't even turn down the shilling meter, not even a dial. They didn't turn it down even a little bit. They're still shilling at the same level as they were during the election. So like this whole push them left was just bullshit. They're just partisan hacks, and that's what they had to say to get people to vote for Joe Biden in an election. So they said it, and now it's after the election. They have absolutely no reason, no justifiable reason why they're still kissing Joe Biden's ass, kissing Kamala Harris' ass, but they're doing it anyway because they're partisan hacks. And then to the whole $2,000 check thing. I mean, I can't wrap my mind around how they've successfully managed to limit the spectrum of debate in these like extreme corporatist positions. Like now we're debating, oh, did he mean $1,400 or did he mean $2,000? Like either way, they don't even come close to what the government should be doing to help people out right now. That doesn't even come close to the assistance that they should have been providing to the public during this emergency. So that's another thing that where they like you cannot make sense of their position. You can't keep calling them leftists where they're advocating for neoliberal policies and neoliberal positions. Giving people like Bernie was before when they were doing the negotiations for the stimulus checks before the election. Bernie was going around with Josh Hawley, and he was like, "Oh yeah, let's give everybody a $1,200 check," and that was just like met with a round of applause by people on the left. I'm like, "Oh my God, look at Bernie Sanders fighting for us," but in reality, what the fuck are you fighting for? You're fighting for a means-tested $1,200 check that millions of people aren't going to get in the 10 fucking months into the worst economic crisis in history. And that's what you're arguing for, a fucking $1,200 check? So, like, the whole spectrum of debate is so way off. And, like, these elected progressives, they just accept it. And they don't even push back. They don't even try to reset the Overton window to a place that makes sense. It's because what the bare minimum should have always been from the CARES Act was, we're not settling for shit. We're not settling for shit unless there's $2,000 UBI for everybody in this country in the middle of this pandemic. And if that was what the government did from back in March, people would have got like $20,000 by now. So this whole, did Joe Biden mean $1,400? Did he mean $2,000? I don't give a fuck what he meant, because at the end of the day, it's not anywhere near what he should be doing. And like, I feel like the bar is people just accept the shittiness of the politicians in Congress and in DC. And they're like, oh, well, they're liable to not give us shit, and they will leave us for dead in the middle of a crisis. So, $600, that's something. $1,200 is something. $2,000 is something. So let's just argue for that. And when we get that and it's gone immediately, we could spend another 10 months arguing for another means-tested check that millions of people won't get. Like, this whole approach to the economic crisis has made no sense from the beginning. And nobody in Congress has ever taken a step back to reevaluate it and say, okay, so the checks are one thing. Like, the whole means testing the checks and the whole one-time check shit, nobody has really forcefully pushed back against that in Congress. Nobody's pushed back against putting money into the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, which has been a proven corporate scam the entire time. Most of the money goes to big corporations anyway. But yet, in every single stimulus bill, there's always more billions of dollars more funding to add to PPP. So, like, all of the shitty parts of the CARES Act have just been grandfathered into the conversation. And when people talk about, okay, so what's the government going to do next? It's just like, all right, let's just do some more shit that we did in the CARES Act and again, do it one time. Like, I can't wrap my mind around how far the discussion is from where it needs to be.
Yeah, it's really insane. And meanwhile, how many people are going to die during the time that they're going to be debating like what we're going to do next, like for 10 months? Like, how many people are going to die from like during that time? Thank you, North American Ape said, "Oh snap, is that Unapologetic? That's what's up." So we got some mutual fans watching here. Yes. Shout out to you guys. So yeah, last thing I'm gonna say is, and I'm gonna leave this message for everybody, is when the heck was the last time that the squad has called out Biden or Harris or any other corporate Democrat for their war crimes or their imperialism? I can't remember. I can't like. Can you remember, Dontel? Like, I don't think they ever have.
No,
like,
and that's
pictures with the coup leaders of Bolivia, and then she was like pushing for a regime change in Venezuela when she was like cooking vegetables, right?
Yeah, and it's like, So something that I've been thinking about lately is, all right, so it's been over a year since the Afghanistan papers came out, and for people who aren't familiar with it, it was basically the government's own, in their own words, in their own notes from interviews that they did with people at the highest level of government, in the Pentagon, from the White House, the State Department, where they were in charge of the Afghanistan war, and they asked them, "Hey, what's going on there? What have we been doing there?" And they basically said, "Yeah, we have no idea what we're doing. We're killing a bunch of civilians. We're covering up civilian casualties, and we're wasting a bunch of money over it." So we learned the worst thing you could possibly learn about our government, that they're doing genocide for profit, and they've been lying about the longest war in U.S. history. And so now that Biden's coming in, he's bringing in a lot of people who not only started the Afghanistan war, but they lied to us about it the whole way through. And then after they left government, they went and joined the defense industry and then got rich off of the genocides that they started. So again, like, how is this not a point of criticism for the Justice Democrats? There's like 7 Justice Democrats on the Oversight Committee. The Oversight Committee is supposed to be looking into, they do investigations into different agencies and different departments of the government and things like that. How are you on? There's so many Justice Democrats in the Oversight Committee, and nobody has asked for or pushed for an investigation into the Afghanistan papers, into the role that Joe Biden had in the Afghanistan war, getting us into there, and lying about it the entire way through, and the endless list of war crimes and civilian casualties that they've covered up. That's another thing where it's not like, oh, they have no power to do anything about it. They can push for. That's not an impossible ask to push for and invest. Look how quick everybody's calling for a committee about the riots on Capitol Hill. Why aren't they calling for a committee about the longest war in U.S. history, where the government's been proven that they were lying to the public, and then now those very same people who lied about the war, got rich off the war, are backing government to continue the war and start new wars?
Yeah,
there should be an investigation into that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And yeah, like those people that profited off of the war in Iraq and are still profiting off of that, and Joe Biden is now putting more troops into there. Like it's like never ending, this thing, and we're gonna continue to expose that. So I'm really glad that I had you on. You know, somebody who influenced me to start a channel. So where can people find your work so that they can hear you calling out like the synthetic left, and also informing people about the corruption in our government? Where can people find you?
So you can find me on YouTube at Unapologetic, at youtube.com/unapologetic. I'm also on Odyssey at channel's name Unapologetic. And I have links to all my other stuff in the about page of my YouTube channel. And you could follow me on Twitter at unapologetic YT, at unapologetic YT. Yeah, that's about it. So thanks for having me on, Franco.
Yeah, man, I could talk to you all day, but I gotta head out. Yeah, man, thank you.
I'd love to come back on the show anytime.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to have you back on. I definitely want to continue collaborating with as many content creators as I can. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. And to everybody else, don't forget to stay informed.